The room is dark, and the long day is finally over. Your body sinks into the mattress with a heavy relief. But behind the quiet of your closed eyelids, a storm is gathering. A mistake from earlier in the week suddenly feels enormous. A worry about tomorrow sharpens until it has teeth. The more you try to find sleep, the further away it drifts. This is not just ordinary tiredness. It is something much more specific. The mind becomes loudest precisely when the world falls silent. The first and simplest explanation points to stress and anxiety. If you have a difficult life, of course your worries will visit you at night. But that answer does not explain why calm people experience the same surge. It does not reveal why a trivial comment can echo for hours in the dark. Psychologists call this spike in nighttime mental chatter bedtime rumination. Rumination means chewing over the same thoughts without reaching a solution. During the day, a million small tasks occupy your attention outside of yourself. Emails, footsteps, traffic, notifications, and conversations fill every silent gap. But when you lie down in a dark, quiet room, all that external noise disappears. Suddenly, there is nothing left to focus on except what is inside your own head. The attention that was scattered outward now turns inward like a searchlight. And what it finds is a queue of unfinished emotional business. Neuroscientists describe a network in the brain that activates when we daydream or reflect. This system is largely quiet when we engage with demanding outside tasks. At rest, it springs to life and begins weaving together memories, worries, and plans. So the bedtime surge is not a failure of the brain, but a natural shift of focus. However, the darkness of night changes the emotional quality of these reflections. The part of your brain that helps you stay logical and calm is also preparing for sleep. It becomes less able to challenge exaggerated fears and more likely to accept them. A minor embarrassment from lunch feels heavier when your emotional editor is half asleep. This is why a small worry at midnight can balloon into a catastrophe by 2 a.m. The combination of inward attention and lowered emotional defenses is a powerful amplifier. But there is another force making bedtime thoughts even louder: your own resistance. The harder you try to push a thought away, the more stubbornly it returns. Researchers discovered this through a famous experiment with a simple white bear. People told not to think about a white bear could not keep the image out of mind. And when they were later permitted to think about it, the bear filled their thoughts even more. This is called the ironic rebound effect, and it does not spare bedtime. When you lie there commanding yourself not to think about that awkward conversation, you monitor for it. The very act of monitoring keeps the forbidden thought in the spotlight. Sleep is a state that must be invited, not demanded, and effort itself can block it. Thus, the desperate wish to fall asleep becomes the main obstacle to actually sleeping. You begin to check the clock and calculate how little rest remains before the morning. Each glance at the numbers tightens the knot of frustration and urgency. Now, you are not only replaying the past, but also fearing the exhaustion of the future. The bedroom, once a refuge, transforms into a silent battleground with your own mind. Yet the struggle to silence your thoughts misunderstands why they arrived in the first place. Your mind is not attacking you. It is doing precisely what a mind does with empty space. It is attempting to resolve unfinished problems, process undigested emotions, and prepare for possible threats. These functions are valuable during the day, but at night they collide with the need for rest. Consider what happens when you do not resist the thoughts, but simply notice them. Watch them as if they were cars passing on a distant road, not commands you must obey. This practice is known as cognitive defusion, creating a gap between you and your mental noise. The thought remains, but its power to stir panic and urgency begins to shrink. Studies suggest that accepting present moment experience without judgment reduces nighttime arousal. But acceptance is not the only tool that research supports. When intrusive worries are predictable, scheduling a worry time earlier in the evening can help. Set aside 15 minutes to write down every concern, no matter how small or dramatic. Then close the notebook and remind yourself that this time is finished for the night. You are not dismissing the problem. You are giving it a proper appointment instead of an all-night siege. This technique works not because problems disappear, but because the mind learns to wait for its container. Yet even with these strategies, some nights will still feel loud and difficult. The same person who practiced worry time may still find a feared memory surfacing at 1 a.m. But what has changed is not the presence of the thought, but the meaning you assign to it. Before, you might have interpreted a racing mind as a sign that something was deeply wrong. Now you recognize it as the sound of a brain doing maintenance on the day's unfinished material. A car engine does not run at night because the journey is still happening, but because the oil is being checked. The quiet of night does not create new problems. It simply uncovers the ones already waiting. And your emotional editor, half asleep, will color these thoughts darker than they usually appear. That is not a flaw in you. It is a temporary state of a tired brain. Knowing this can turn a terrifying spiral into a slightly uncomfortable biological event. You might say to yourself, "This is a worry, not a prophecy, and it will feel smaller in the morning." Not because you suppress it, but because you understand the conditions that magnify it. This shift in perspective is the heart of the reversal I want to offer you tonight. Your thoughts do not become louder at bedtime because they are more true or more dangerous. They become louder because the stage is empty, the spotlight is fixed, and the director is asleep. The loudness is not a measure of importance, but of sudden, unopposed attention. Small sound in a cavern seems like a roar, not because it grew, but because the silence surrounds it. In the same way, a minor regret in a quiet mind can echo like a verdict. And when you fight that echo, you only feed it more energy and more attention. The real peace at night comes not from silencing the thoughts, but from no longer needing to. From understanding that the mind's night chatter is an old, automatic process running in a sterile room. It is not a breakdown. It is a feature of a brain that keeps working even when the body rests. The central question was why our minds speed up when we finally slow down. And here is the clearest answer. Because slowing down does not empty the mind. It removes the noise that conceals its continuous motion. The storm was always there. You simply could not hear it over the traffic of the day. Now, back to the dark room where we began, the same body sinking into the same mattress. The clock still glows, the ceiling fan still clicks, and the worries still visit. But you are no longer a prisoner of the visit. You watch the thoughts arrive, you notice their intensity, and you let them stay without serving tea. Sleep will come when the conditions are right, not when you bully it into arriving. And sometimes, the most helpful thing you can do in the dark is to stop trying to solve anything at all. Give your mind a quiet permission. No emergencies are required to be resolved before dawn. If a genuine problem needs attention, it will still be there in the morning, and your full capacity will be too. The moral resilience of a well-rested brain is one of the most underrated forces in psychology. So when the volume rises at bedtime, you can gently turn toward it with curiosity instead of dread. Ask not how to silence the noise, but what the noise is trying to tell you, then let it wait until daylight. Curiosity does not demand answers. It simply stays present with the question, and that itself can quiet the storm. In the end, the loudest thoughts at bedtime are often just tired parts of you asking to be heard, not fixed. And often, the simple act of noticing them without believing them is enough to turn down the volume. The bedroom is still dark, but now the quiet feels less like a trap and more like a resting place.